I can stay within this home, achieve what I want to achieve, transform it in a way that always seems to reflect a new part of me that I never thought would be there. So I think this home for me has represented that new transformation.
Welcome to Imprint, a podcast about creating a home and life you love. I'm Natalie Walton, an interior designer, stylist, and best-selling author focused on an holistic approach to homes. Each week, I'm sharing insights and interviews about the creative process to help you enhance both your interiors and well-being, as well as provide you with the tools and resources to make considered and sustainable choices with all that you create. Hello everyone, welcome to Imprint. I'm very excited to have a return guest with you today. Her name is Kasturi Wren or Kaz Wren. Some of you will know her through Instagram. She goes by the Instagram handle Kaz Wren. And I wanted to pick up because over the past couple of years, she has been renovating a home in country New South Wales, and she has had to be incredibly resourceful. She's got a beautiful aesthetic. I love her take on the way that she approaches her projects, and she's just a great storyteller. So if you enjoyed our last conversation, and many of you did, I know that you have shared that with me, and even if you're meeting for the first time, you're still going to get so much out of this. It's really a great motivator in terms of, if you're struggling to keep going with your project, if you're renovating your own home, if you want to feel inspired again, then this episode is for you. And I hope you enjoy hearing more from Kaz as much as what I did. So enjoy our conversation. Hi, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast, Kaz, because I saw recently that you shared about your latest home project, and I was just so excited to learn more about what you've done since we last met, because the last time we were in conversation, you were in the Blue Mountains and had just literally sold that house. I think it was even maybe that week, and were about to move to Sydney. And then all of a sudden you were in this place called Coolah, which for anyone who lives in another part of the world or who is perhaps out of New South Wales, it's about 7 hours southwest from where I live in Byron Bay, and it's about 4.5 hours from Sydney. So I'd love to pick up where we left off. If anyone hasn't listened to the first episode, you might want to start there. I will put a link in the show notes, or you can just pick up where we are right now. And so Kaz, let's pick up where we left off. We were literally in your home having a chat. And as I said, you were just about to leave the Blue Mountains. Maybe you could share the decision behind letting go of that home, because you really had put your heart and soul into that place. And then why did you decide to move to Coolah?
Yeah, wow. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me back on to your amazing podcast. That's a real privilege. At the time that we spoke last, you came to Lura, and that was just amazing that you drove all the way and had the opportunity to see such a beautiful home. I loved it so much. I had a great affection for it because it had all the elements that I think I was sort of maturing in my design ideas, and I used that project as a way to, challenge myself, particularly when it came to colors and when it came to structure and form and what a home is all about. So I was really proud of that house. But when I spoke to you last, there was a lot of things I couldn't actually say to you because I was leaving many things. And one of the big changes in my life was not just leaving my marriage, but I was leaving a religion. And I couldn't really talk about that because I still hadn't been excommunicated. After we spoke, it took a few months, but I then wrote a letter to the church that I was leaving. and I then got shunned. So I was in a situation where I lost my home. Well, I lost it because we sold it because I was getting a divorce, and that was a big. It was not only a big change, but it really hurt, and it was a very sad time. But I am so grateful that I had great friends and great support, and I also met someone who later on became my partner, and Kate. And so together we decided to go on a new adventure, and that's how I ended up in Kula, because she lived out here in regional New South Wales, and I thought, well, let me go and see if I can make that my life. And so I was looking for a home to buy, and this came on the market. It had been on the market for quite a while, but because of the drought, bushfires, mouse plague, everything that you can throw at regional New South Wales happened, and so this house was on the market for a while, and that was great for me because I was able to then buy it at a price that I could afford, and it was just such a beautiful home. It was a bit daunting for me because I'd never heard of Kula. And I remember telling Kate, let's go and turn up at the local pub and see how people receive us. Because after all, we were a gay couple. I was of an ethnic background, and that could be really scary. I'd always been apprehensive about moving to country New South Wales, or any countryside outside of the major cities, because I was afraid of that of a bad reception. So we started to go to the pub and started to play pool and started to have conversations with the locals, and I realized this is a great place. People are really friendly, and whether or not they accepted our life or not, they kept it to themselves, and just made us feel at home. So when I walked into this particular house, I thought this is a home that had lots of love in it. It was a home that had a whole life. 40 years had been spent by the couple who had it. They had created a parkland out in the front of the house with 40 different varieties of roses. And he was a blacksmith. So the back shed was just his creative hub. And she was a local librarian. And you can just tell that this was a place where there was happy memories. And I thought, well, I'm ready to create some brand new, fresh memories and a new life, a new community, a new me. And so that's how I ended up in Kula.
Wow, that's such a great story. And in relation to Kula, can you share a little more about this place? We have people listening from all over the world, and as you mentioned, it's in country New South Wales. Perhaps you could share, what do most people do who live there? Can you paint a little bit of a picture of the town itself, and I guess the style of homes and the architecture of the homes? Yeah, just paint a picture, because I know that you're a good storyteller.
Yeah. I have a friend here in Kula who has an expression to try and explain where Kula is. And she says Kula is sort of in the middle of nowhere, but at the center of everything. And geographically, that fits Kula very well, because 2 hours north of Kula is Tamworth, an hour south is Mudgee. Then you've got Merriwa on the eastern side, and on the western side you're heading towards Victoria. So travelers who are traveling between Queensland and Victoria tend to go through Kula. And when they're trying to find a route, they go, right, what's this town? Never heard of it, but let's just go off, the normal path and visit this town. So I find that there is so many travelers that go through this town. Some have been here many times, and some have no idea where where they are. In terms of what the architecture and the homes and the styling, I think it's important to know that this was an agricultural town that was settled in the 1800s, and in the early 1900s they had a train line built, which unfortunately and sadly was then no longer in use, I think, after 1920. But one of Kula's one of the coolest, grandest homes, I would say, is Kula Creek, which is owned and run by the Arnott family, and that's Arnott's Biscuits. So they have quite a legacy here in Kula. And I heard that when they had the train line, they were able to then bring all the construction tools and everything needed for the build on the train, and then take it up to Kula Creek, which is this beautiful, almost like a 1920s, 30s mansion that's surrounded by gorgeous gardens. So that's about 20 minutes outside of Kula town. And you'd find that there's quite a few homes around the town itself that might take between 10 minutes to half an hour to get to, that are just homesteads, beautiful big homesteads on cattle farms and sheep farms, because this is an agricultural town. Within the town, you had the people that were working on these homesteads, and that's where they set base. And you could also have professionals like doctors and lawyers, setting base there. You had the press club and the shops, the grocery store started to get built, and the pharmacy and the hardware store and the pubs. Every good country town has at least two pubs. So Kula has a top pub and a bottom pub, and it has a hospital. But what I find really interesting is you've got quite a few homes that are built like this one is in the early 1900s, so 1910. And they're very, weatherboard, the typical regional country home fashion of, tin roofs, weatherboard walls, and at least two or three fireplaces within the home. And also typical of that era, very cold. So you get those homes, and then you do get some newer buildings as time has gone on. People have got sick of being cold, and they've created brick buildings and more modern architecture. But I would say that predominantly this is a town that hasn't seen a lot of construction for a while, and it's really these older homes that are scattered throughout. What I love about Kula is that you have these wide streets, and everybody, like most people in this town, keep such a nice, neat yard. Mowing your lawn is a big deal. If you don't mow your lawn, people are like, what are you doing? You're not keeping up with the expectations. So everyone has nice, tidy yards, clean facades to their home. And yes, some homes, are in disrepair, but people are very house proud, and they do with what little they have to create their home. So I find that really special. And in these wide streets, you've got beautiful trees that line either side. And at this time, with this weather, it's even more gorgeous because the leaves are just scattered everywhere, and it creates such a picturesque scene. So yeah, it's a beautiful town, and it's not rich like a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but it's not incredibly wealthy. But at the same time, this is an example where wealth is not needed to actually say, hey, I'm proud of where I belong. I'm going to live in a beautiful surrounding, and everyone's going to roll up their sleeves and try their best to make this a beautiful town. So I really enjoyed being involved with the community as well to achieve some of those goals and to continue maintaining the town. So that's been quite exciting.
Oh, it sounds so good. I hope that I get to visit it one day. So tell me a little bit then about what was the goal for this house? I mean, did you buy it thinking it was going to be your permanent home, or is it a stepping stone home? Are you still commuting to Sydney? Last time we spoke, you were still working as a lawyer. Are you working remotely? I mean, I know so many people are doing that these days. Can you shine a little bit of a light on what your plan is with this home? Because I think that has such a big impact on how you approach the decoration and how much work and time and money you put into it as well.
I think I'd like to go back um, a track a little bit and go back to the beginning. I remember when I was celebrating my birthday in 2020. And so this was literally the first time that I was celebrating my birthday because it wasn't something I could do in my previous religion. And I had a photographer friend with me at that time. And she knew how special this was. I was celebrating my 40th. We were in Sri Lanka. And she wrote me a letter, and I wanted to read this because a lot of it seemed to be very much fulfilled as time went on, and it's just perfect. So she said to me that she felt like I was starting a new sequel to my story rather than a new chapter. And she said this sequel is going to be filled with escapades to far-flung places, falling in love with strangers, late night music jams, business ventures, selling homes, settling into new ones. There will be challenges, but there will also be wild, free, outrageously exciting adventure. Collect stories and don't do anything I wouldn't do. This is loving and living. Don't hold back. And I was reading this only recently, and I thought, wow, that's exactly what I feel has happened in my life since 2020. I definitely have not held back. And I have had to challenge myself, particularly when it comes to the lifestyle I want to live. And when it comes to the lifestyle, we spend most of our life trying to earn an income, trying to survive, pay the mortgage, pay bills, and therefore we have to have a job. And I have had an amazing career as a lawyer, but I had to make a choice. Do I live in the cities with a big mortgage, but have the job? You know, the job that will bring me the great income to be able to afford it. Or do I go and move to the country, completely change my lifestyle, change how I spend money, and have a way of making an income that allowed me to work from home? So moving to Kula meant that I had to really find a way to be self-sufficient and also have a home that's set up in a way that I can, tick off the boxes that I really wanted to. And there were two things. I wanted to have a beautiful, simple country life, and I needed it, particularly since life had been so hectic for me. I needed to make sure that I had a job, I had money coming in, but I also needed to make sure that this home was able to help me with my creative projects. And I realized that I couldn't just spend my entire life being a lawyer. I had to be more than a lawyer, and that's where my new life and lifestyles changed so that I can be creative. I can have creative friends and pursue creative projects. So when we came to this home, it had a maroon, weatherboard on the outside, and the colors were all reflective of what you would have in the 80s. You had salmon pink, and you had carpet throughout the house, and I didn't have a lot of money, so as I was saying before, by changing my life meant that I didn't have the resources that I had before. Back in Lura, I can very easily go and buy all the brands, Astra Walker and all the top brands that you'd have in a home that just is beautiful, but for me it wasn't affordable. And the other problem that I had was finding labor, like finding tradies to come and work on this house. A massive challenge when you're out in the country, because oftentimes they will say, we're booked out for 6 months, we're booked out for a whole year, or they'll add to the price in such an exorbitant way because they have to come an hour to come to Kula. So I had those challenges, and I also had the challenge of trying to run my own business, my legal law firm, and continue consulting. And so I just found myself being really, really blessed by a couple of things. And one is having Kate in my life, because Kate has just been such a great help. She is so capable and talented when it comes to getting hands-on. Back with my last projects, I can rely on other people. I used to have Tom, my ex's brother. He was the builder, and there was always someone who we could pay to do the tiling, do this, do that. We didn't have that luxury here. So Kate and I had to get very hands-on. We needed to rip carpets out using our own hands, and then take every single staple that's on that floorboard. And I can tell you that is a task and a half, because just when you think you've got every single staple out, you're walking and ouch, there it is. Like, how the heck did that staple get there? I don't know who stapled the underlay in these homes, but they went crazy. So there were lots of things that we were doing using our own, our own skills, turning to YouTube. And one of the big jobs that we did was paint, fresh white paint. And that just changed everything, because you just suddenly felt calm. I felt like I could breathe out again, because I wasn't, I didn't feel like I had clutter, or I had, other darkness. And I really wanted light in this house. And that's another problem you have with old homes. It's dark and it's cold. So we painted it white. We got a spray gun, which Kate became incredibly great at doing. And then we met a guy called Handbag. His name's not Handbag, it's actually Jeff. But there's many stories as to how he got his name. But Handbag is this retired guy from a local town. He is quite a character. He turns up with thongs on and a cigarette in one hand, and a circular saw in the other. And I was like, okay, I don't even know how this is going to go, but I've got to trust this guy. And we've just had an amazing working relationship now for the last 2 years, because if it wasn't for Handbag, I don't think I could, one, afford to do what we've done. And two, he was also a type of guy who just said to me, all right, what do you want me to do? And I'll draw it on a piece of paper for him. He'll look at it and he goes, and he takes a little bit of time, but he always gets it done. And he's so complimentary. He always goes, oh, you girls know what you're doing. And so it doesn't matter what idea I had, he would be more than happy to do it. And one of the ideas I had that really challenged him was to create a rangewood cover using plywood. And he had never done that before, like many things that I was getting him to do, but it took him quite a few hours to just even work out how he's going to do it, and he was doing it wrong, and he's swearing, and so I'd bring up a YouTube clip and say, well, look at how these people did it. And so anyway, he eventually was able to build a beautiful range hood cover. It looked great. We loved it. So like that, this home has just kept transforming every time. And this is another challenge. Sometimes when you're working on an old home and you're living in it, you can get distracted by the everyday life, and you don't have the energy or the will sometimes to pick up a paintbrush. So what I started to do to Kate's unhappiness sometimes would be, hey, let's have a workshop, or I'll create a reason for us to have at least 5 jobs done. So we invited Angela Palmero. She's a chef, and we invited her to do a cooking class. And there was also Nadine. She's a florist, and we had them come and do workshops here. And this house, I remember when Angela came, she came to prep for the workshop, and we hadn't even set up a kitchen island yet. It was still in the shed, and we had to bring it over, and the floors hadn't yet been finished. And she just went, oh my God, girls, I don't even know how you're going to be ready for tomorrow. So she left for the day. She came back the next day, and she was just stunned because we worked so hard that night to paint the kitchen floors, which we did it in a checkerboard style. So we decided that we would be a bit more out there, and we brought in this beautiful long kitchen island that we got from someone's shed in Marrickville, and it was all set up. And no, the house wasn't ready, but the kitchen was, and that's all that mattered for that workshop. And so the same with Nadine. She came as well, and we had set things up. So I'd always create a reason by inviting people over, by having projects, by continuing to do things in this house, because that's my goal for this home, to make this a hub of creativity, to have artists come and stay, to have talented people like Angela and Nadine come do workshops. And the people of Kula, I mean, my main goal is to have the locals come to these workshops, because that's not something that they're always, they're not open, or they don't have the opportunity really. So, and also I very randomly, when I meet someone on the street in Kula, and I know they're not a local, they could be anyone like from Sydney, and I strike up a conversation. The next moment I'm inviting them over. So we've had strangers come here and have dinner. We've had great conversations. So this has really been a hub of activity from the very beginning, whether we've been ready or not. And what's been really exciting is 2 weeks ago we had Country Style magazine come with Bridget Arnott as the photographer, and she came with a stylist, and they took photos. And I'm really happy to say that this home is going to be in the magazine, that it will be released on the 20th of June.
That's exciting. And I love that you set these deadlines. I'm a big believer in setting deadlines. Tell me, with these workshops that you've done so far, are those people Sydney-based originally? And then who came to the workshops? Has it been locals? Who's attended?
It's interesting. For all the workshops we've had, they've been sold out within a day or two, and mainly by locals that live in this town. There have been some that come from Mudgee, which is like the city for us. It's the big smoke, and it's the fancy people, and they have also, yeah, been attending these workshops. I had someone from Kula say to me once, "Oh, isn't it amazing that we have now an event where people from Mudgee come to Kula as opposed to the other way around?" So I've never had a problem with selling the tickets with people attending. I have now had the courage to do my own workshop. So this Saturday will be the first Sri Lankan cooking workshop that I will be hosting myself. And it's all,
Fantastic.
yeah, it's mainly Kula locals coming with a couple from Mudgee. And it's going to be fun. Yeah, it's just going to be all about food and Sri Lanka and spices that Kate and I went to Flemington a week ago, and we just bought everything. The extra hot chili, and the curry leaves, all the ingredients that you can't really get at the local IGA. So we'll make it very, very special.
Just quickly, if you're new to me and the podcast, I have 4 books that I've created for you to help break down the biggest lessons I've learned over the past 15 years working in the interiors industry. The first, This Is Home, has more than 1,000 5-star reviews on Amazon and has almost a perfect score. And more than 5 years since its release, continues to be a bestseller for interior and home design on Amazon. I share this because I've put thousands of hours into creating all of my books. I put my heart and soul into each one to help you on your journey to creating a home that's beautiful and authentic and makes you feel good every time you step through the front door. This Is Home is part of a trilogy that includes Still, the Slow Home, and Style, the Art of Creating a Beautiful Home. So I encourage you to check them out if you haven't already. And Home by the Sea, my 4th book, includes my own home and is all about loving where you live. I hope you find them valuable and they help you on your journey. You can buy them on Amazon or support your local bookseller. Now back to the show. You've touched on this idea of really having to work within a budget. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because I love the fact that, and you shared this on your Instagram feed, that you are both doing all the work, and you can see that you're kind of getting in there and doing it yourself and having many late night sessions painting and all the things. And I just think it's such a great example of how you shouldn't let your budget or available money hold you back in terms of creating a home and creating a really beautiful one at that. So can you just share how you've worked within your budget? You've already mentioned paint and how transformative paint is, but are there any other ways that you've had to kind of get really clever with your budget?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I have been able to collaborate with some great brands, including Falcon, given the Instagram account that I have and the audience that I have. I was able to say to them, can we have a sort of partnership here? And so they were able to give me an oven, a beautiful induction oven at an incredibly good price, which I could afford then, because if it wasn't for that, there's no way that I'm affording such a grand item in the kitchen. And so there have been other brands like that even Murabon paints. It's a relationship I've had since the last house in Lura, so they've really wanted to be part of this project. So having people be part of the project really, really helped. The other thing that we've done is try to do, obviously, a lot of the work ourselves. And when it comes to painting a home, a lot of the work is prep work. It's taking the time to chisel away and gap fill. I think that we bought every single gap filling, product there was from the local hardware store. And so much so that the guys from the hardware store were like, "Are you guys eating this?" So our old home has many holes to fill. So we definitely saved money from being able to do that. And we've also taken our time. that's really important, because you can't do a home in 6 months if you don't have the budget to do it. You just need to focus on one room at a time or one project at a time. And the other way that I've also really saved money is getting on Marketplace and looking, searching for items that I really needed. And for example, one of the items that we bought was a front fence. We got this beautiful big picket fence that we were able to source from someone who had taken it from the old schoolhouse in Mudgee. So it had a bit of history, and it was much cheaper. And yeah, we do need to fix it up a lot and paint over it and so forth. But it's those things that really make a difference, because to fence just your front yard could be thousands of dollars. You think, how does that happen? It's just a couple of pickets, but it just adds up, and sometimes that's that's not a kind of expense that we could spend. So there's a lot of items in the house that I have obtained via Marketplace, and I've been really fortunate to have seen it and then got in my car and driven hours to go and get it. But it's really really made a difference. And there were times when I became so fatigued and maybe even um, a little bit down during the build, where I thought, I can't see the end of the road here, or I just don't have the energy for it. And during those times, I'll then hire some people in town to help. And there's this young person called Rhiannon. She has become a friend now, but she would come and help with the painting, and she would just do an excellent job. She would just get it done. And I think sometimes when it's your own project, you can be very restrained or hesitant, or it could be a little thing that stops you from starting. And for me, sometimes I just think the idea of opening up a paint bucket and finding my drill kit to mix the paint is enough of a barrier for me not to want to do that. But to have someone else come in and go, oh, yep, where's the paints? Where's the drill? Let me mix it and just get it done. I just feel like, oh my God, that room looks great. And I needed you. And I have told Rhiannon that her coming to assist me, yes, we had to spend the money, but in return, what I got was mental support and encouragement, which, you can really get deprived of. It can go out like money does out of the bank account. So does the energy that you have for a build. So there's we don't really talk about budgeting for our emotional senses and emotional energy. That's something I think that needs to be talked about more, and how we address that and how we cope with doing a renovation. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I have to share with the listeners that at the moment where you're sitting, there is a ceiling, and part of the wall has been painted in a beautiful mustard color. You've used color in a really beautiful way, and quite a different way to last time as well. So, can you talk about, what has inspired your use of color in this home?
I'm glad you asked that, because I'm very excited about color. And a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have been. My first project was a house we built in Lura, and it was a Hamptons home. That was the inspiration. So everything was white and very toned down colors, and that in itself is beautiful, because it's calming to come to a home with sort of toned down natural colors. The next house, I did start to experiment more with color, but still a lot of it was quite toned down, and it was still very beautiful look to look at. but not challenging in, in the way that I have tried to challenge myself with this build. And so I decided that I would do, for example, door frames, a very dark gray, to highlight the white French doors. And I have gone for white in many rooms only because you need a lot of light in a dark house. So that was fine. But then I decided, I fell in love with this color that we call the cooler color, that Murabomb paints have put together. And I basically, wherever I have an opportunity to paint a wall with that cooler color, it's like a mustard color, I do it. And one of, I guess, the challenging, or the ways I challenge myself is I took the ceilings, which are quite high, and I painted the tin on the ceiling, this mustard color, and I continued painting it up till about 3 or 4 panels of weatherboard on the walls, so that it just felt like it was a cap on every room, and it made the room cozier, and warmer. So that's one way that I definitely use color. The other way that I brought in color was to bring in wallpaper, and that was a big challenge for me, because wallpaper is a different era. It's not something that has been very popular over the years, particularly here in this country. But I would turn my attention to a lot of the English designers and interior designers and stylists. And I just loved it. I loved how they were able to lean towards the arts and craft era, where you had, Morris and Co., and lean towards creating a room that was about being a collector of items, being someone who's all about craft, and someone who believed in patterns and textiles of different um, types just working together. And I think we get so scared about trying to put things together. So I went to Annandale Wallpaper, and I was looking through the volumes and volumes of wallpaper that they had, doing my brain in. It is really hard to pick wallpaper. I didn't go crazy. I just did it on a feature wall, and I wanted to see it from the kitchen, which we put in a window in the kitchen to create sort of like an internal divider. And I love the idea of looking into another room from another room, and windows do that. So I put in this beautiful window just above the kitchen sink, which is, when I say kitchen sink, it is a kitchen sink and a half. It's quite massive. And from there, you can see the wall where this wallpaper is. It was a bit interesting, actually, because we had no idea how to put up wallpaper. We had initially thought we'll call a friend who's done it before. And then we thought, you know what? Let's give it a go. So Kate, of course, she's the one with all the skills. She was like, "Yep, I'll get my hands dirty here." We went and got the wallpaper paste, and we spent all night using, the leveler that you have with the it. What do you call it? It has sort of a little beam that comes out of it. We use that to be able to straighten the wallpaper up and stick it on, and then it just looked great. I loved it, and it was a Morris and Co. wallpaper. So that is my nod towards the arts and craft era, back in England. And then on one of the walls, I created paneling where I then painted it using the cooler colors. So there is a lot of color happening in the home. It still is not in the same vein as, a Rita Koenig lounge room, but it's getting there. And I'm looking forward to creating more layers, more depth with not just colors, but structure and form, and really making this feel like an artist's home. That's always been my goal with this place, to create, not only make it a hub, but make it feel like it's just full of creativity and pockets of I guess spaces to sit down and read and enjoy the surrounds and enjoy the sun. So I've done that with color, and I remember back in Lura when you came, one of the bedrooms, I turned the books on that were on the bookshelf the other way around, where the spine was um, facing the other way, so that I could tone down the color from the books just to make it aesthetically pleasing. And I knew my books. I knew, like, okay, that's Catcher in the Rye. But this time I decided that I was going to be true to my books and let them be seen. And so we have a floor to ceiling bookshelf that was built by Jeff Handbag around our fireplace in the dining room. And it's full of books, full of color, lots of color everywhere. So no, it's great. I love that space.
Yeah, and I'm presuming it's the cooler color that you used on the floor in the kitchen, 100%, which mentioned earlier on, we'll definitely have to share photos because it's really amazing what you've created with the space. And actually, that mustard color reminds me of my last home in Sydney. I actually had a ceiling that I painted a really similar color. It was actually an antique gold, so it had a beautiful patina as well. And I always think that you can get creative with ceilings. It's not, it's in your face as a floor to ceiling wall. So now I really would love to know more about the photographic prints that you are looking to do as part of a series. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, that is a project that I had an idea about a few years ago, just before my whole life sort of fell apart. And I had reached out to a photographer friend of mine, and I said, "Hey, do you want to, be part of this project?" She then said to me, "Look, I'm happy to do the photography, and you can just pay me for that, but you can take the project and give it wings." Because of COVID and life, I wasn't able to do anything about that project. It was inspired by the artworks of Hammershoy, who's a Danish painter. And later on, a lot of photographers in Europe and Scandinavia have also kind of used that Hammershoy principle of the solitary figure in an interior space to create interesting portraits of people that would have different weird items that are placed on them to almost create a girl with the pearl earring look, in an interior space. So what I did with my friend and another makeup artist friend is we went to Taralga, to the Argyle Inn, which has these beautiful interiors, very reminiscent of a bygone era. And we had this model that looked like the girl, with pearl earring. And I had some Ellery outfits that were quite elaborate and dark and moody. And I'd got some lace from the markets at Glebe, and we just created this shoot that ended up being absolutely beautiful. And I've had like 10 of these different prints. So I decided that I was going to print 2 of them to see what it would turn out like. And they're beautiful. So my goal now is to slowly print out, the prints as time goes on in the next couple of months, and to now make it available to everybody, and say, yeah, you can have this on your wall as well, because they look gorgeous. It's definitely it looks like a painting, a pre-Raphaelite type painting, but it's a photograph. So yeah, I'm excited to launch that.
Yeah, it's really beautiful from what I saw. So I look forward to seeing what you do with that. Now, before we wrap up, I would love to get some reflections from you, just in terms of the journey that you've been on since we last met and what this home has meant for you. Where are you at in your life right now in terms of, how you feel about yourself and where you're at in your journey?
Um, this home has been a way for me to center myself. That might sound, um, so general and uh, kind of, uh, being centered is sort of where everyone wants to get at. But I do feel like the physical requirements of this home, the challenges that I've had to go through, the mental requirements, and where I've pushed myself to, has in a way made me feel at peace. And it makes me feel like I know who I am, um, in my 40s, which is, I think there's a lot of women who turn 40 and suddenly they just don't want to accept what society requires of them and what you've been born and bred with to believe. And this is where I'm doing it. And I feel really happy doing it here because I can uh, really limit the sort of disruptions I have. I don't have to get in a car and get in traffic and go to this place and go to that place. I can stay within this home, achieve what I want to achieve, transform it um, in a way that always seems to reflect a new part of me that I never thought would be there. So I think this home for me has represented that new transformation, and the answer to the questions that I've had in my 30s. You know, could I do this? Um, is it possible? And while I'm not doing it alone, it's made me feel very independent. It's made me feel like I am capable of so many possibilities. And I don't, I traded in my uh, Jeep Rubicon for an old Hilux. And in many ways, I feel like that in itself is a representation of how my life has transformed. I've gone from the big Rubicon, um, fancy, with all the mod cons, to a very sort of practical but fun way to get around life and to be able to move things around. So yeah, that's what this home's been to me. And in terms of where I'm at and where I want to go from here, I would say that I feel like I'm just entering this this phase in my life where I can start to just settle down and be able to breathe in and breathe out and really tap into ways that I can make every moment count. I think that back in my 20s and 30s, even, you don't think about time and age and what do we do with our life. But I've been reading a lot more of Mary Oliver, for example, and you know she talks about what are we going to do with this great grand beautiful life that we have. And so that's what I feel my life now is all about, just doing things that I thought I couldn't do, feeling calm and peace and happiness, finding friendships and building on friendships that I have found in the last couple of years that have got me through the really hard times, and really enjoying the little things in life. Like, it's raining now in Kula, which is fantastic because I would never have thought this before. Like, when I hear rain now, I think my garden's going to love it. It's going to be great for the birds and for the worms and for the creatures and for the roses. And that's the kind of life and thoughts that I want to be processing in my everyday existence, a real connection to my surrounds and the natural world, which is not something that I think I've been consciously doing in the past.
So beautiful. Kaz, thank you so much for sharing, this next chapter or the sequel to your story. And I really appreciate your sharing. I really think that people are going to get so much encouragement, to pursue their truth and the life that is meaningful to them. And I always love hearing, from you about what you're up to and how you approach your homes and your life, because I think it's really, it's not only inspiring, but it's accessible. And I just love your approach, how you get so many people involved and you always have this really strong sense of community around you. So thank you for once again being on the podcast.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed this.
All of the links and info for this episode are at nataliewalton.com/podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can get a direct download of the latest episode. And I really appreciate when you take a minute to rate and review, as well as share the love with someone you know who might benefit from this episode, or on social media. If you'd like to access a range of free resources, come visit my website, nataliewalton.com. Thank you to Jaeger Media for producing this podcast. And I would also like to acknowledge the people of the Bundjalung Nation where it was recorded, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I look forward to connecting again soon. I'm Natalie Walton, and you've been listening to Imprint.